POPI Act, it's on our way on the 1st of July. A lot of people are stressing about any industries, any specific people that's excluded from this act. First of all, Ronel De Jager of Basson, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Jasper. It's nice to join you and to educate people on something that I'm very familiar with.
POPI Act, it's on our way on the 1st of July. A lot of people are stressing about, and also a lot of people don't know about that. When I've discussed last month to a few of my clients in their accounting practice, a lot of people didn't even seem to know the word POPI. And this morning as well, when I sent out to the whole broadcast list to all my clients, it was pretty much the same response. What is POPI? I think we need to start with POPI, POPIA, the POPIA manual, and how everything combined and what POPI actually is all about.
Jasper, there are so many four-letter acronyms. Let's start with the first one. It's POPI or POPIA. Some people I heard saying papaya, but that's not the right one. That's a fruit. Okay? We're only talking about POPI and POPIA. That stands for Protection of Personal Information. And when you add the A at the end, it just stands for the Act. So it's Protection of Personal Information Act. There's also something else that works together with the POPI Act, and that is POPIA. That's another piece of legislation because one piece wasn't enough, you know. So that is the...
Hi, Jasper Basson here. I just wanted to remind you about the Daily Entrepreneur Tips series. It's a business growth series for entrepreneurs and contains financial information and also information to grow you as a person and your business, because we will never grow our business any higher than we grow ourselves. So click on the link below and I will send you daily information to grow you as a person and your business. And it's for 365 days of the year.
POPIA, that's another piece of legislation because one piece wasn't enough, you know. So that is the Promotion of Access to Information Act, PAIA. And those two acts work very well together, and they have actually emanated from our constitutional right to privacy, which is encapsulated in Section 14 of our Constitution in the Bill of Rights. It's a basic human right that we are allowed privacy in South Africa, as well as Section 32 of the Constitution, which is also part of the Bill of Rights, which states that we have got access, the right to access information. And that's how those two acts came about, and hence we are here.
So POPIA and POPI, how do they connect to each other?
So they actually intercept quite a lot, Jasper. There's the POPIA manual, which now has become a compulsory item for all companies that conducts a trade or profession, which was previously not the case. Only certain companies needed to comply with POPIA, but now every company needs to comply with that. That means you have to set out a POPIA manual. There's a specific requirement in terms of the Act, and that says, how can people whose information I've got access that information? In a nutshell.
Is this POPI Act applicable? I mean, obviously, like I mentioned, it actually will commence on the 1st of July. Is it for all small business owners? Because, I mean, like in our practice, most of our clients are small business owners, SMEs, with mostly 1 to 2 directors, about 10 employees. Any industries, any specific people that's excluded from this act, or is it kind of an act for all entrepreneurs in South Africa?
We have to differentiate between POPIA and POPI in this answer, Jasper. So first of all, POPIA is required by any organization, and that could be a registered or unregistered organization that conducts a trade or profession. So if you're an accountant, if you've got a medical practice, if you've got a plumbing company, you know, you have to have a POPIA manual. So that is something, and it depends on the size of your organization as to how comprehensive such a POPIA manual will be. If you have got a plumbing agency, you probably don't have a lot of information of people. If you're a chartered accountant, you may have a lot more information. So it's also not a one-size-fits-all solution. For the POPI compliance, it's a little bit different. The POPI Act only applies to organizations who actually deal with personal information. So if you don't deal with personal information, the short answer is you don't need to comply. But hold your horses, because it's not that easy. Sometimes people think they don't have personal information, so maybe we should tell you what personal information is.
I wrote that question down just now because I mean I think that's an important question.
So personal information, the Act says it's any information about a person or an identifiable person. If you've got bank information of an employee because you need to pay their salary, that's personal information. If you've got somebody's credit card details, that's personal information. If you've got the information of how many children they've got and what their names are, that's personal information. Addresses, any type of information which you can link to a person is personal information. That's quite wide. So if you've got 10 employees, you've got personal information, even if you don't have clients' information. But most companies have got service providers whom they pay. So they do have that personal information. They've got companies whom they invoice, maybe with a VAT invoice, you've got their VAT number, that's personal information. There's a whole host of things that you may have that you don't even know.
So I'm going to ask you something very practical, and I think that might be very useful for anybody listening. Accounting practice, generally what will happen in, let's take an example that something that really occurs a lot is the bank might send us directly email asking for financial statements. So will it be sufficient for me for POPI to reply to both of them, asking them permission, and if the client replies with the permission, giving me the thumbs up, that I can actually send it to them? Or must the client actually directly send the email, let's say, to the bank?
Okay, so Jasper, I mean, this legislation is not there to complicate your life. You still need to be practical about it. So yes. The way that you've described your response, that is certainly will count as consent. But many times the bank has an agreement with the account holder, if it is a business, for example, and some of that terms and conditions in the bank's contract says we are allowed to inquire directly from your accountant, which you will tell us who they are, for financial statements. But you as the accountant may not know about those terms and conditions. So it would also be sufficient if the bank says to you, please see clause number 13 in the attached agreement where the client agreed to this, will you make this available? Because then they've given their permission also. But you shouldn't just send it on without some sort of permission or proof that they've consented to it.
Something else that actually just popped in my head as well, and that's something I see not generally from our office, but I mean, people are all just human. So they maybe send the email to Jonathan, but they put in the J and it pops up Jasper, and they send out the ID or personal information. That's obviously a risk on POPI because you send out personal information to the wrong person.
In terms of that question, that's a good one. What we do for our clients is we put a disclaimer at the bottom of your email, which says that the email that you sent is only intended for the person that is received. And if you are not the person, then you should let us know and delete this email immediately. So if you receive something like that in error, if you the recipient, not the sender, but you the recipient, you should also not hang on to that information, because that information puts a burden on you. As soon as you receive personal information, you have got a duty to protect it. So don't keep it, just delete it. Then you know that and also advise them, sorry, I've received it in error. But it does happen that we make mistakes. And we should be careful. If an email does contain personal information like an ID number, etc., just double check before you click send that it is actually going to the right J and not to the wrong one.
That was one of the things that actually came up from my side. Life happens. I mean, it can always happen. So I think on that note, what kind of risk are there for the business owner if they weren't compliant with POPI?
Okay, so the short answer, but there's always a short and a long answer, and I'm a lawyer, so my standard answer is it depends. But let's start with the short answer. The short answer is the Act says if you don't comply with a specific notice, you can be fined and or go to jail for up to a year. That is only if they actually told you to do something, you didn't do it. Other than that, if you're not compliant, there are administrative fines that can be issued, and that's up to 10 million rand. We expect that there are specific industries that will be targeted by the information regulator as soon as this Act goes live. For example, financial services providers, brokers, that kind of, they have got a lot of personal information. We think that they'll be high up on the information regulator watch list. Medical practices, for example, recruitment agencies. I'm only naming a few, but there are definitely more on that sort of short targeted list. That said, it doesn't mean that they can't come and knock on your door if you are a different type of organization, an accountant, for example. But I'm just saying that there are certain industries that may be more easily targeted. They're supposed to, in terms of the Act, do an investigation, and then only after the investigation is completed, give you that notice. That notice will probably tell you comply or else. And if you don't comply with that notice, then you can get a fine. So it's not something that they can just rock up and ask for the stuff. You don't give it to them and they give you a fine immediately. They will give you a period to comply. It will probably not be a long period. So either you have to have somebody like me on call to help you urgently, or you'd have to have started your project already to implement POPI in your organization.
You mentioned a few times today, so who enforced this POPI Act? Is there a specific organization that do that?
Yes, Jasper, there's an organization or a body called Information Regulator. It is both a body of people as well as a specific person who carries that role, similar to Office of the Public Protector.
The problem with most entrepreneurs are, from my experience that I see, is most of them don't even have time to do day-to-day admin. They can't even get to, never mind something like POPI.
Yeah. That is a tough one, eh? So I said earlier that it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. So you've got to look at what is the size of your organization. There are some basics that you need to get into place. So like I've already discussed, the PIA manual, that is something that you would need to get in place. Secondly, you would need to do some sort of a risk assessment. That is what the Act says. Now, a risk assessment to me is probably a much longer document than it may be to a plumber, or than what it may be to an electrician, or to an accountant, or to anybody who's got other professional services that they render. So it all depends on who you are as to how comprehensive that will be. That risk analysis must be done in conjunction with the 8 principles or 8 conditions of the POPI Act. You are only allowed to keep information for a specific purpose. So if you're asking for somebody for information, you've got to say to them, this is why I need the information. I'm going to do this with your information. So you've declared your purpose for collecting it. And then you should only collect the minimum that you need to actually achieve the purpose. So if you need a name, a company name, a phone number, and an email address, there would be no need for you, for example, to ask what is your physical address and your ID number and that type of information. So you must only collect the minimum information in order to achieve your purpose. Once you've then collected that information, you have to declare to the data subject what you're going to do with that information if it's not going to stay with you. You've got to protect all the information that is in your custody. Once you've collected the information, you can also only retain it for a specific time. And that time is set out in the Act, not very helpful. By the way, it just says for as long as you need to achieve the purpose. Not very specific, but it could be different in different industries. You shouldn't keep it for too long in an archive for a year or two, and then you don't need to keep it in that information anymore, and you should be deleting it. The last thing is, if you keep information, you collect it today, and you want to use it for the same purpose in 6 months' time, you should be sure that that information is still correct. How many times have you been contacted by some call center and they still have your incorrect details or incorrect address or something like that? So it's important to make sure that whatever information you do have, that it is kept up to date, and you must allow people to have access to that information, like I've discussed through the PIA manual. For more information on that 8 principles or 8 conditions of POPI, we will share a link after this chat so that you can have a look at a different video to talk about that in more detail.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I will definitely share it here. And obviously these videos go to YouTube as well. So we will put on that, definitely on those videos as well. I think lastly on that, is there any way that people can be in contact with you for kind of a quick chat, quick overview of what needs to happen, quick consultation? How would that work with you?
Okay, so we've automated a lot of these things just to make sure that we can put the right consultant to the right industry and to the right type of organization. We've created a short questionnaire. It'll take you about 5 minutes or less to complete it. We'll share the link to that online questionnaire. You can answer the questions. We can give you an idea of what type of level risk your company is. It's at a high level of risk or a medium level of risk or a low level of risk, and also give you advice as to what you need to do. So once you've completed that form, you submit it to us. We will then be in touch with you. My PA will set up sessions to consult with one of my team members. Then we'll tell you exactly what you would need, how much it would cost you if you want to do it with us. All of that is done free of charge. So that's a complimentary service that we provide to any of your clients or any of the viewers of this video.
That's an awesome tool for any entrepreneur to use. I think I want to encourage everybody. I'm going to do it after this, and really just complete the form and assess your risk, like you mentioned, low, medium, or high risk. At least give it a try and at least give it a go. Assess your risk, even though you might feel there's no risk for you. Jump through the hoops and pursue the meeting. Thank you very much. I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to ask. I really appreciate your time, and I've learned a lot of POPI today, especially for our business as well. Thank you for being prepared to go practical on me and dive deep into our business as well.
Thanks for the opportunity, Jasper, and I do hope that those of you who have not complied with POPIA as yet, the fines are not to be taken lightly. And yeah, I know that there are a lot of people that are sitting back and saying, yeah, we'll see what happens with all the other clients and all the other companies. Be careful, watch out. But if you do need assistance, please call me. But if you call me on the 29th of June, it's going to be a bit difficult to get you in line by the 30th. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Really appreciate the time.
Thanks, Jasper. Have a nice day.
Same to you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.